Good day! I am KARL Jofer BRIONES, student of BSBM 2 MM5. My chosen topic is about Introduction to International Trade. So first, let us define what is international trade. For you to know, international trade is the oldest branches of economics. It concerns with respect to the use of scarce resources in order to meet the economic objectives. So ano nga ba pag sinabing scarce resources? Or ano-ano yung mga scarce resources? Scarce resources are the workers, equipment, raw materials, and the organizers to produce scarce good. Like the more general society-wide condition of scarcity, a given resource falls into scarce category because it has a limited availability in combination with greater productive uses. And ano naman pag sinabing economic objectives? Pag sinabi naman nating economic objectives, yun yung mga gustong ma-achieve ng government para sa economy ng isang bansa. For example, stable prices or yung pagkakaroon ng low inflation. Next is the steady and sustained economic growth. Low unemployment or full employment, a balance of payments. In addition, international trade is the exchange of capitals, goods, and services across international borders or territories because there is a need or want of goods or services. In short, international trade covers the proper allocation of resources in order to meet or achieve what governments wants for our economy. So next, nature of trade. So first, let us define what is trade. Trade refers to buying and selling of goods and services for money or money's worth. It involves transfer or exchange of goods and services for money or money's worth. Trade is essential for satisfaction of human rights. And lastly, trade is conducted not only for the sake of earning profit, it is also provide service to the customers. Nature of trade. So dito pumapasok na yung import and export. So ano nga ba pag sinabing import? Import are the goods and services that are purchased from the rest of the world by a country's residents, rather than buying domestically produced item. And ano naman pag sinabing export? Kabaliktaran. Exports are the goods and services that are produced domestically but then sold to customers residing in other countries. In general, imports leads to an outflow of funds from the country since import transaction involve payments to sellers residing in another country. However, exports lead to an inflow of funds to the seller's country since export transactions involve selling domestic goods and services to foreign buyers. Under ng import yung trade in services import and trade in goods import. And under naman ng export yung trade in services export and trade in goods export. Therefore, mayroong international trade sa services and mayroon ding international trade sa goods. Trade in services. Trade in services refers to the sale and delivery of intangible product called a services that takes place between a producer and consumer. It takes place between producer and consumer that are in legal terms based in different countries. Para mas lalo pa nating maintindihan, international trade in services is defined by the four modes of supply of the General Agreement on Trade in Services. May apat na mode yun. First, cross-border trade, which is defined as delivery of a product from the territory of one country into the territory of other country. For example, remotely providing accounting services in one country for a company based in another country, or an airline flying between two international trade destinations. Next is consumption abroad. Covers supply of a service of one country to the service consumer of any other country. For example, tourism, telemedicine, or study abroad. Next is commercial presence. It covers services provided by a service supplier of one country in the territory of any other country. For example, a bank opening a physical branch or internet service provider offering internet services in another country. And lastly, the presence of natural persons, which covers services provided by a service supplier of one country through the presence of natural person in the territory of any other country. For example, a business transferring an employee from one country to another for work duties. Kung magbibigay tayo ng specific na trabaho, ang pinakamagandang example nito is yung mga doctors and architects na nagta-travel and nagtatrabaho sa ibang bansa. Kung merong international trade in services, meron ding international trades in goods. Trade in goods includes all goods which add to or subtract from the stock of material resources of a country by entering its economic territory or leaving it. In general, pakikipagpalitan ng isang bansa sa ibang bansa ng isang produkto or yung tangible at serbisyo intangible. Now, let us proceed to economic interdependence. May element ang interdependence. Those are trade, finance, and business. Under ng trade, nandun yung goods, services, raw materials, and energy. And then explain ko siya isa-isa para mas maging malinaw. Okay, goods are the merchandise or possessions. Services, the action of helping or doing work for someone. Raw materials, the basic material from which a product is made. Energy, the strength and vitality required for sustained physical or mental activity. Next element is finance. Under ng finance, nandun yung foreign debt, investment, and exchange rate. Pag sinabi nating foreign debt, it is the total debt which the residents of a country owe to foreign creditors. Pag sinabi naman natin investment, it is the action or process of investing money for profit or material result. And pag sinabi naman nating exchange rate, it is the value of one currency for the purpose of conversion to another. The last element is business. Under ng business, mayroong multinational, corporation, and global production. So, what is multinational? Multinational including or involving several countries or individual of several nationalities. Next is corporation. Corporation is a company or group of people authorized to act as a single entity and recognized as such in laws. And global production. Global production is a concept in developmental literature which refers to the nexus of interconnected functions, operations, and transaction through which a specific product or service is produced, distributed, and consumed. Included din sa element of interdependence yung forces driving globalization. Under nun yung technological change. Nandun yung production, communication and information, and transport. Hindi ko na siya masyado explain pero it is just an innovation. Next is liberalization of trade and investment. Nandun yung tariff, non-tariff barrier reductions, liberalized financial transactions, international financial markets. It is just the removal or loosening of restriction on something, typically an economic or political system. Next is changing the degree of economic interdependence. Take note, it It is important to recognize both the large absolute level of international trade and the relative importance of trade has been growing for nearly every country and for all countries as a whole. Next is the impacts or interdependence impacts. First is the overall standard of living is higher. So paano nga ba natin masasabi na mataas na yung living standard ng isang tao? Okay, masasabi natin na mataas na yung living standard ng isang tao kung mayroon na siyang access to raw materials and energy na hindi available at home. Having an access to goods and components made less expensively elsewhere. May access to financing and investment not available at home. And merong international competition encourages efficiency. Other impacts, it can be good and bad. First, nakikirtails na yung inflationary pressures at home. Next is limits domestic wage increases. Makes economy vulnerable to external disturbances and limits impacts of domestic fiscal policies on economy. Next is common fallacies of international trade. May tatlo yun. First, trade is zero-sum. Next is import bad, export good. And last is tariff and quotas save jobs. So, ano nga ba yung trade is zero-sum? It is simply, trade can bring benefit to both partners. Next is, ano naman yung import bad, export good? It is simply, if you buy nothing from other countries, they have no income to buy from you. And yung sa last naman, which is yung tariff and quota save jobs, it is simply means cutting imports make it harder to export. So, other jobs are lost. Types of trade. May dalawa yun. Inter-industry trade and intra-industry trade. So, ano yung inter-industry trade? It is depends on differences across the country. However, intra-industry trade depends on market size and occurs among similar countries. It is simply, pag sinabing inter-industry, sa labas ng bansa, pag sinabi namang intra-industry, sa loob mismo ng bansa. Next is, subjects in international trade. May dalawa doon. International trade theory and international trade policy. Pag sinabi natin international trade theory, it analyzes the basis of and the gains from international trade. It focuses on the microeconomic aspects of the international economy. However, pag sinabi naman natin international trade policy, it examines the reason for and the effect of restriction on international trade. It analyzes the implication for international trade theory of such restrictions. Next is current international economic problems. Pumapasok dun yung trade protectionism in industrial countries. Tas under nun may mga tanong. What are the reason for this protection? What are the implications of this protection for the industrial countries? What are the implications of this protection for the rest of the world? And last, how do regional trade blocs, the NAFTA, European Union, and etc. complicate efforts to reduce the protection? Which is, yun yung tanong na kailangang masagot in order to address yung problem na yun, or which is yung the current international economic problems na kinakaharap ng ating ekonomiya or ng ating bansa. The last part of my discussion is about globalization. So, what is globalization? Globalization talks about increasing international economic connections, international trade, and international asset ownership. Impacts of globalization. Una, increasing role of international organization in constraining domestic policies. Next is increasing cultural homogeneity. Increased domestic economic growth caused by expanded international connections. Lastly increasing international economic connection. Next, the anti-globalization movement. Pumapasok dito yung a loose coalition of groups opposed to globalization. Concerns, environmental damage, loss of domestic labor protection, and erosion of domestic sovereignty. This is the end of our discussion and sana may natutunan kayo. That would be all. Thank you and God bless.